Guys, we've all heard the expression buyers are liars. So here's a question that I'm going to ask you, really to ask yourself. Are you behaving more like a consumer or are you behaving more like a professional life insurance salesperson? So here's the thing. Are you selling most of the people that you're like meeting with if you're a face-to-face agent or you're speaking with if you're doing telesales, or are you leaving your business card with a lot of people who really don't buy from you? So it's a complete waste. Even better, are you like emailing, more information to the prospect that you made a presentation to that didn't buy? Before we get into it, guys, please give the video a thumbs up. And I do suggest subscribing if you're new to the channel. We're putting out new insurance sales content and final expense sales training videos just like this all the time. When I first got into the industry, I was recruited as a Hartford agent. So a little bit about my mindset. So here I was 10 years into sales. I had been a home improvement salesman and I had seen some pretty good success. I was never like the top, the number one guy, but I was never at the bottom. I was usually, I guess the way to put it is I was like on the top third. I did pretty well. I beat out most people. Thing is, what I didn't realize when I got into life insurance sales is this is completely different. You're convincing people to make a lifetime monthly payment on a product that they're never going to see, hold, touch, sit in, drive around. None of that. It does nothing for the consumer that's paying for it. And guys, stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to show you how to get a copy of the guarantees of whole life insurance that you'll absolutely want for your presentations and the I am your policy. I like the I am your policy. I think it's something that's a nice item you can mail out with the policy that you sell your new clients. When I first got into life insurance sales, so I would go into this office Monday through Friday. We would always have a little meeting and we would always talk about the presentations that the agents made the night before or the day before. And I was hearing the same thing from my bosses. I worked for them, from the owner of the company and my manager. Doug, you're doing something wrong. You're weak. And they would hear me setting the appointments. So this is face-to-face sales, what I was doing. And they would tell me, look, you're weak on the phone. You don't sound right. And the reason you didn't sell last night was the same thing. You were being weak. You were listening to the lies. You were believing the nonsense and you weren't doing your job. And the truth is, back then, when I first got into the life insurance industry and was working for that company, I was leaving a lot of business cards. To me, that's like the definition of a failed agent. You're leaving your business card. You're not closing the sale. They're giving you an excuse. They're asking for your card. I love it. They would say, well, do you have a business card? Like, no, I don't have a business card. I'm too stupid to do that. And they would say that to you. And of course, like a dummy, sure, here's my business card. Give me a call. Like an idiot. Guys, I was weak. I was terrible. I didn't realize it. I assumed I wasn't that bad. And what I actually did was I brought in an old recorder into a presentation. It's funny. I had the recorder for a while and I was just afraid to break it out in front of the client. I finally had this lady where I did it with, and she was cool about it. And of course, single lady, she had back then, this was a mortgage protection presentation. She didn't buy the life insurance. She's got a kid. She absolutely needed the life insurance and I just couldn't close her. And I just remember taking the recording when I got in my car. It was a long drive home and I listened to it and thinking to myself, oh my God, you're terrible. I was saying things in a way that I thought was really good and clear, and it wasn't. Certain things that I was saying, it wasn't just the way that I was saying it, but it was some of the words I was saying too. And I also realized, and you may have seen this in other videos, I've talked about this, that my energy was low. It really just wasn't there. I was pretty monotone. So I said, hey, enough is enough. And that was really when the light came on. I just remember I was angry. I'm driving all the way home. It's this long drive. The appointment was like in South Miami or something. So I got this 45-minute, hour drive home and I'm listening to it going, it's terrible. You don't sound good. The tonality's not there. Like everything was terrible. So I decided enough is enough. At that point, I was going to actually listen to my bosses. And what they were telling me was they knew my energy was low. And they were telling me, look, you kind of got to put on a show. You got to push yourself. yourself. If you're not exhausted when you come out of the house, you did not do your job. You did not do everything you can to help these people. And they used to always say, these leads are laydowns. They're all laydowns. How can you possibly not come out of the house with a sale in most of these houses? They were right. So what did I do? I changed. And I want you to think about it. As a consumer, would you make a lifetime monthly insurance payment commitment to someone that you kind of don't respect? They're kind of hesitant, doubtful. They sound maybe insecure. That was me, 100%. Of course you would. Common sense says, no, you don't. And if you do, you're probably going to get buyer's remorse immediately. And that's what they were doing. So not only were they not buying, but some of the people that did buy were canceling like immediately. This sounds familiar. You got a problem and you need to fix it right now. So I made a decision. I'm not going to leave my card anymore. I'm not going to listen to any nonsense. And if I can't close these people, it's my fault. And I'm going to be upset with myself. And so the next house I went into, I put on the show. This lady, it was a very similar situation. This lady, I remember the house. She lived on a lake. I remember the neighborhood she lived in and everything. I remember the whole thing about it. She invited me in. I started with my presentation and I just kind of went and did the show. I kind of went all out. And I remember I was flapping my arms around. I'm like kind of being a little obnoxious. She was smiling the whole time, laughing with me, maybe a little bit at me, but 35 minutes later, she handed me the check. She signed on the dotted line, and I experienced this over and over. At that point, there was no more nonsense. My attitude really changed. One of the things that I decided was I'm not going to leave a business card anymore. That was admitting failure. So when I couldn't close them, when I couldn't, convince them that, what they requested was what they needed, and when I couldn't do my job, I couldn't respect them. And I feel like that was a huge thing for me because I was giving them too much respect. That was one of the problems. That didn't even have the own common courtesy to do the right thing for their family. They wouldn't get the insurance they knew they needed. I'm giving them all this respect. I stopped that. So inadvertently, if I couldn't close you, I remember when I first started doing it, I would pack up my stuff. I would stand up. I'm not shaking your hand. I'm not kissing your ass. I'm walking out the door. And sometimes, depending on the attitude of the prospect, I would just literally leave the door open. They would kind of see me get up, walk out and leave the door open, and they wouldn't know what to think, whether I was coming back or not half the time. But that was because I realized, why should I respect them when they don't even have enough respect to do the right thing? And by the way, before I would leave, I remember if there was, especially when they really needed it, and this is when I did that, and this is what we're talking about. For me back then, if you're a family man, you're the head of your household, you've got children, and you didn't get the insurance when you absolutely needed it, I was throwing you under the bus. I would sit there and say something like, look, if I leave here today, your wife is just going to assume you don't care. She's going to assume you care enough to put on this insurance show, but then you don't even have the courtesy to buy the insurance. She knows if I leave here today and if you die, they're going to end up living with her mom, her sister. Is that what you really want to do to her? And I would say this on purpose so that when I did leave, if I didn't sell, I wanted them to argue. I wanted her to say, hey, you're not doing the right thing. Because the simple fact was, my bosses were right. These people needed the insurance. They filled out the forms for a reason. And if they didn't have the insurance and I couldn't help them, there was probably something wrong with me. But at the point to where I got really good and ended up being one of the best agents, I realized it was something wrong with them. No more respect. If you're not closing half of your face-to-face sales, or if you're doing telesales, at least 1/3 of your remote sales, you're doing it wrong. You need to fix it. There's something going on inside of you that absolutely needs to change. You got to do the work on yourself, and you got to do that immediately. Listen to your recordings of yourself. If you're not doing that, you suck. I already know you suck. You're in denial, and you need to do the work. And at some point, you got to stop listening to the lies. You got to quit giving these people respect. You got to push through the nonsense and do your job. Again, stop leaving your business card. Stop emailing people that you're doing telesales presentations with, like more information about the company. Always be closing. Your job is to help these people, not to make excuses or listen to their nonsense. You got to push right through all that and do your job. If you'd like a copy of the guarantees of whole life insurance and the I Am Your Policy that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, just email me at doug@ufesonline.com. If you'd like more more information on our remote final expense telesales platform, where if you want 20 appointments a day set by the client, I can make that happen. You just got to ask, and you got to have a little bit of money. Just email me at doug@ufesonline.com for that too. When you put the needs of your clients first, everything else will usually fall right into place. Now get out there, and whatever happens, just make sure that you do something good for someone else today. And don't give them respect unless they earn it, because they're not going to give it to you either.